Hi, everybody. It's Rhonda with Rhonda's Interviews, and I hope everybody is doing well today. I'm excited to have Bob Locke back. We're going to be talking today about blockchain and cryptos, and not too much detail, not to worry. It won't be anything that I can't understand. So I think, if it's something I can understand, I'm pretty confident everybody else will be able to grasp the basics of it. So without further ado, here's Bob Locke. How are you, Bob?
I'm great, Rhonda. How are you?
I am good. I am good. So this is something, I've been writing a couple articles about blockchain and crypto and all that, but I still think it's something for those of us who are not that young anymore, who aren't, who didn't grow up with this kind of thing. It could be really hard for us to wrap our brains around all these changes. So I'm wondering if you could kind of just give us the basics of blockchain and what that has to do with the QFS and blah, blah. So.
So the way that I got to know blockchain was I started looking at it. It was really through trying to understand a concept called smart contracts, and smart contracts using blockchain are a recent innovation that have really revolutionized um, contracts because it allows you it allows everyone who has access, and this is and so I'll transition over to the QFS and what that means for us from a practical, kind of logistical day-to-day experience of blockchain. So blockchain in terms of smart contracts is the same as blockchain in terms of your bank accounts. All right. So, right now, you go into the bank or you go online or you get on your phone or whatever and you do your banking, and you see certain outward facing information once you go through your security verification, and all the rest of the things that are going on are behind the curtain, and you don't get to see those. Okay. And unless you're very sophisticated, you don't even understand that there are things that you can do to enhance your security and to limit the number of people and the type of people within the banking industry that have access to your account information. Well, uh, blockchain is a technology that the QFS uses, and QFS is just it's just the quantum financial system is it's a big computerized financial accounting system that uses blockchain technology. And why that's important to us is that we can then at that point get access to all of the information with respect to our account. And we can set it up so that it gives us notices for things like, say somebody went in and looked at your account information. Well, who was that person? And why? What was the purpose for their looking at it? You'll get a ping, you'll get a notice every time that something happens with respect to your account. So right now, in today's world, we're in a situation where, unless you specifically told the bank otherwise, then your account is probably um, marked as something that can be used to train personnel at the bank. And so they will actually go into your live account, and they'll take a new teller or someone that's new to the bank, and they'll show them your actual account information and how to do different things that bankers do on a daily basis. And that may or may not concern you. Most people don't even have a clue that it takes place, but and you understand the reason for it, that you can do so much with a model, um, but or a training module, but actually seeing an account in real time, and seeing debits and credits and charges and other things that take place with respect to the account. I can see the utility of it. I don't feel comfortable necessarily having strangers look at my stuff, but you know what, I'm not a multi-billionaire, so it's not like I've got a gazillion dollars that I need to worry about. The most important thing to me is, are my funds where they are? Are they safe? The QFS gives you that extra level of safety because once you set everything up and you say, okay, the only person that gets to see this is me and my wealth manager, um, or me and a trustee that I appoint for a trust, that I create, and the wealth manager, that kind of a thing. And every time anything happens with respect to that account that you set up, a notice gets sent out to me and that trustee and that wealth manager. And if it's anybody outside of the three of us that's accessing the account, then we'll be able to trace who that is, where they are, and what the purpose of their viewing the account or doing anything with the account is. And then obviously make any changes in terms of permissions and things like that to make sure that that doesn't happen if it's something that we don't want to take place. So in a nutshell, that's what the QFS is. It's just a more robust. It really gives the customer, um, a true visual, um, of their account and of the security associated with their account so that they can kind of keep everything, um, what do I want to say, just so they can make sure everything is above board with respect to their funds.
Okay, so question on that. You said somebody could, so how is somebody even able to ping your account? How is even any, if it's, how is that possible? Is that imply that there is a hackable element to this, or are you just talking about somebody from a bank who might ping it to do, like you said, training?
Right, right. I mean, it may be, it may be that they, there's a software out there within the bank's, um, computer system, and once an account reaches a certain level, that it automatically shoots some account manager a note that says, hey, this account, because of the history of it and the amounts involved and everything, is, eligible for one of our special, credit cards or one of our special CD rates, things like that, and send an offer. It's that kind of a thing. And that stuff happens all the time. But then you get situations like has happened with Wells Fargo. That's probably the most well-known one, where they went out and opened up credit cards for like 3 million people that the people didn't even know about, right? In order to generate more revenue for their unit. So you don't want those kinds of things. So the QFS, that says, okay, when somebody or some system, it may be an internal bank system, tries to access your account records. All right, if you haven't set up your account to specifically deny that access, all right, then it's going to go through in the normal course of the bank's business, and you won't know about it. Normally you wouldn't know about it at all until you get a mailing or an email or a text that says, hey, we're going to give you this special offer for, for this credit card or this CD or some other financial product, right? um, but now under the QFS, you'll know that every time, and you'll know it when it happens, and you'll have an IP address of where that came from, and that IP address is traceable to a person, and you'll have all the information that you need. So and in terms of the other side of your question, which is, is it hackable? Okay, because these kinds of records, because the system's set up the way that it is, um, someone can try to hack the system. And that there are going to be millions of hackers out there, just as a challenge, are going to try to do that. And every time that that happens, you will have you'll have a record of that. You'll have a notice of that. and then to the extent that there are ways that you can enhance security to make sure that people like that can't even ping your account, then you can work with bank security to set that stuff up.
Okay. So, okay, so two other questions. When we are, will the QFS, is that going to kind of be up and running prior, even if it's minutes prior to us, going into our redemption appointments? And
Uh, you know, a lot of this stuff is conjecture. There's a lot of people who are talking to actual bankers that are dealing with it. What I've been led to understand, and it makes sense to me, is that the system is up and it's been tested and it's continuing to be tested, and it's ready to switch over. And you started to see these things. If you just look out in the mainstream media, when you know all of a sudden Russia is no longer part of the SWIFT wire transfer system. And oh, that's going to kill the Russian economy. Well, no, they already had a blockchain system called CIPS, associated with their BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They already had this system, this alternative system for wire transfers and things like that. And they're using that and moving away from the fiat US dollar as a global reserve currency because they know it's about to die. So I believe that the system is out there, and in certain places it's actually working, but it hasn't taken over the entire system, and they haven't shut down the old system yet, and that won't happen until after we get through our appointments. And
okay,
then
so
all our
one
stuff, once we're at our appointments and those transactions take place, all those funds are going into a QFS set of accounts.
Okay, but from what I understand, it's not the same thing as a bank account. It's kind of more of a tracking system.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, it's an account. It's an account. I mean, it's just a financial accounting system. So, I mean, you're going to be able to get physical access to your funds. You're going to be able to transfer them. The nice thing is that wire transfers won't take days. They'll be instantaneous, um, and there won't be fees associated with them because there's really no transaction cost associated with it because the computer system is set up that it takes virtually no resources to take care of it and take care of it safely and securely.
So when people say, okay, because I think there's a little bit of confusion among, about what does this mean? It's when it says it's a QFS account, it doesn't mean that the QFS itself is the bank account. It means it's a type of account. I mean, your money will be in a bank account, but it will be run, for lack of a better word, by the QFS. It'll be managed by the QFS. Is that a good way of putting it?
So think about it. Think about it in terms of, your current um bank account where wherever you are, Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo, HSBC, your credit union, whoever. All right, they're all hooked into the SWIFT system. Now they all have computerized accounting systems that are under like ISO regulations, right? And they all speak the same language. So you can have transactions occurring back and forth, whether from point of sale terminals to your bank account or from your bank account to another bank account to pay off a credit card, whatever. There's this system operating on the same language. Each bank plugs into that, right? That's current SWIFT system. And the QFS is it's just a more modern, secure um, uh, system
Like an
In terms of
alternative to Swift, like a better alternative to Swift, basically, or
exactly. And so in terms of day to day and transactions and things like that, it's really going to be seamless. You're not going to know it. You're not going to know, how the system's working or anything, except when you do things like set up certain permissions, right? So when I started looking at this, try to understand blockchain originally, I did it from, putting a lawyer's hat on and saying, okay, well, you got these smart contracts and you've got people in different parts of the world that are working on, complex transactions, and they're drafting, they're collaborating on the drafting of a contract that incorporates all the terms that they negotiate as they're going along. And under the blockchain, every time somebody goes into that master contract document and makes a change, a notice is sent out to everybody else who has been given access to that document. So you can know when changes are taking place, and in real time you can go in and say, well, hey, wait a minute, that person shouldn't have had access to this document to do the edits that they did, so therefore, you get a meeting with everybody involved, and you work on security protocols and things like that, and you make sure that the contract reflects what it is that you want it to reflect. um that's how I got to understand blockchain. And so in terms of your day-to-day banking, you're going to use your credit card the same way, you're going to use your bank account the same way, you're going to have checks, you're going to have, you can walk down and you can get cash. All that stuff is going to be there, and it's going to work exactly the way that the system now is working, that you already understand. So it's not like you're going to have to relearn banking. To most people, it's just going to be seamless. The only thing that they'll know in the back of their mind is that it's a much more secure, much more robust system that is much better able, to protect the funds that they have wherever they may be within the system.
okay. And so even if they have trouble setting up these permissions, for example, they could probably just call the bank customer support and or
Exactly.
yeah. So really, it's not this big scary thing. It's just a new way of doing things that again nobody knew how Swift worked anyway. Well, not nobody, but most people had no idea. I never even heard of Swift honestly until I started researching these things. I didn't even know what it was. I knew things were changing, but I didn't know. Well, I didn't even know that. I didn't know anything. So I think probably speak for a lot of people. I don't think a lot of the people, at least in the groups that I'm seeing, are at the level of being super techies or whatever, or really highly involved with the financial system. I think most of us just kind of write our checks, pay our bills, and that's kind of the end of it. So I think it's been intimidating for some people to think, okay, now we're looking at not just blockchain, but now how are we gonna pay our bills? Do we have to pay them with this cryptocurrency, or are we still gonna have tangible paper money? And because that I think is going to be hard for a lot of people to wrap their brain around. Even when I first heard about cryptos, I didn't understand that a token or coin wasn't a physical object. And I just couldn't wrap my brain around that. Like, what do you mean it's not physical? So
Well,
can
and
you?
getting a comfort level with that. And to me, okay, so to me, the way I look at this is the system is changing. The old system is dying, and in its dying death throes, all right, after hammering cryptocurrencies, as like Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. Originally the bankers, oh no, this is terrible, and we need to outlaw them, and they're being used for criminal activity. And really, what it was all about was, people don't trust banks, and bankers are going to steal more from you than strangers off the street 99.9% of the time, right? But what the bankers were really doing was trying to slow down the evolution of cryptocurrency until they could come out with their central bank denominated, digital currencies, right? And that's what they're coming out with now. And because the ultimate goal for the bad guys is to have us operating on a Chinese style um, social credit system, right? So if you say anything in a text or in a chat or wherever, in an Instagram or Facebook post or an email, that the system will flag it, and then it'll put limitations, restrictions on your ability to access your bank account, your ability to go down and get a bus ticket, go to get a train ticket, a plane ticket, whatever, fill up your car with gas, go to the grocery store. That's their ultimate goal, is total control. And they'll do it, they want to do it financially. So I really don't like these new CDBC, or yeah, CBDC, the central bank digital currencies. I really don't like the idea of them. I think that they're being trotted out right now and trying to keep the old system alive, but the system's dying. And so I'm just staying away from that kind of stuff, and I'm just really anticipating the new system coming in, where you're going to have accountability and where you're going to have credibility and honesty. And whether that goes to crypto, in my mind, crypto is never going to replace real money. And paper money can always be devalued. um, but you know people are going to start looking more and more at gold and silver. And the sales right now of what they call junk silver, which is just, it's not collectors quality coins for silver. You get a bag of dollars, half dollars, quarters, dimes, etc., of that's worth so much. And then you've got something that, if the system, let's say it's not a smooth transition from the current system to the new system, then you'll have the ability to barter, and you won't have to subject yourself to anybody having complete control over your finances. You should have complete control over your finances. And that's what the QFS will provide, is you complete control over the finances, because you can deny the bankers the ability to go in and look at your account, except for certain transactions that you provide them permissions for.
So in other words, that this actually could eliminate bad banking practices or bad bankers because they can't continue with nefarious activities because the QFS simply won't allow it. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, it should block it all the time, to the extent that there are certain special permissions that need to be evaluated. If somebody does get in and try and do something silly, you're going to get a notice about it, and you're going to be able to go to the bank and say, okay, stop that. What's going on here? You know, where before, all you'd get is, hey, somebody put a block on your account, and now you can't get access to your social security check. And it's like, wait a minute, who put a block on my account? Well, somebody made a mistake, but it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks, to clear it up. And it's going to be,
Yeah.
I mean, it happens all the time. And
Oh,
so,
I know. Just
so
charges, just crazy charges that show up on your account, and you think, I don't remember, buying that or whatever. I mean, just little stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so this is sort of like crime will no longer pay, basically. I mean, crime, when they say crime does not pay, it finally might be true that there won't be, it'll be very hard to be a criminal in this system.
Unless people are lazy, um, yes, it will be a whole lot harder for people to be able to go out there and get access and steal, the way that they are right now. Particularly the bankers, because the bankers do it on a scale that, you know, regular bank robbers could only dream of.
Oh gosh, sad. Is it sad? Very sad. So when you say lazy, basically, if we're just managing our permissions and checking our accounts on a regular basis, then we should be okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. So every
the system is designed to protect the customer.
So, for example, I have, believe it or not, I have a friend. I don't think she'll ever listen to this, but she knows who she is if she ever does. She is still using a 15-year-old flip phone and doesn't
Mhm.
even have a computer, right? And I've had other friends that don't have computer. I know. And I think, how is that person going to manage their accounts if their phone, if they can't, I mean, people, I guess, are going to be forced to have smartphones or whatever, I suppose, or
Well,
at least a good
the majority of
computer. Or
people, the majority of the people are they have a checking account. Maybe they have a savings account. Maybe they have, a 401k. Um, uh, and and all that stuff is going to stay exactly the same. It's just going to be more secure. And so it's not like you need to, learn some brand new technology. The security stuff will be the only thing that you really are going to need to understand to make sure
but
that
like
everything's, you know, because there's
but
people right now, they go into the bank and they open up an account and they know right off the bat, they say, okay, I want it indicated on my account that my account is not to be used for training purposes, right? And that the only
so
people that have access to the account records are me and this person and this person. You can do that today. Anytime that you set up an account or anytime you have an account, you can
oh
do that today.
wow.
But
Okay.
people just don't even think about it because they don't
I
know that they
didn't
can do
They
that.
don't know. I didn't
Yeah.
know. So my friend, how, if somebody pings her account, how will she know?
And she'd get a notice.
Like in the mail? Like if she doesn't have an email and she has a stupid little flip phone.
Well,
Um,
however she, um, uh, chooses to set up access to her account,
so
so
she,
if
so she, yeah, sh-
if the
so
only
she
thing
it,
that she gets is if the only thing that she said the only notice that I want to get is a letter in the mail, well then it'll, you'll get a notice that somebody pinged your account, and then the
gotcha.
questions, you know what I mean.
Yeah, and maybe too late. So people, I guess I'm thinking maybe this will force her into the 21st century. I don't know. I mean, maybe, but
Yeah.
but because I don't know how going forward with all of this people can function without some kind of, smartphone, laptop, computer, whatever. I mean, just to make their lives easier, because, if it
Yeah.
takes her a week to find out that her account has been pinged, that maybe, but I mean, again, if she could go into the bank and she could set up those permissions with them, or anybody who's in that situation, you can just go walk into the bank and do that. So then you shouldn't have to worry about being
Well,
pinged.
and then she could set it up to so that if somebody, you know tries to access her account, then the bank will have instructions to call her.
Okay, okay. So really, so for people who really are just really not technological at all, who still are, because I don't think she's the only person out there who's still using a flip phone or whatever, or they're just don't even really have computers. There are so many options. It's not like they're not going to find out. They're going to it's all going to work fine. Like
Right.
nobody has to worry. Yeah.
No, not
So
at all.
so back to the cryptos a little bit, moving on from the blockchain and moving on to the cryptos. From what I understand, there's anybody can pretty much create a crypto, right? I mean, it's like anybody with that kind of knowledge, but it may or may not have anything to back it up, just like our fiat dollar didn't have anything to back it up. But there are cryptos now that are kind of backed by by gold and silver. I was reading an article by Goldilocks today that I couldn't quite understand. I have to reread it a few times, but that the XRP, or I think it's XRP, is kind of backed by gold, but it's backed by the tokenization of that, and that kind of was a little over my head. Can you kind of explain exactly how what cryptos we want to use because of how they're backed? And I hope I'm
Well,
asking
I mean,
this intelligently.
we're in the wild west of cryptos right now, and you're right. Anybody that has a computer and has, some marketing savvy and uh, uh, you know, an intent can go out there and say, okay, I've got this new crypto coin that it's just been invented, and it was put together by, the top crypto scientists in the world, and you need to buy it because it's going to go, through the roof in value. And people do that all the time. And it's just, the way I look at it, because I don't understand a lot of it. I've dealt in crypto on a very, very small level. Friends of mine I know have been dealing with it since Bitcoin first came out. I mean, these people have just ridiculous amounts of the stuff. But I think about it in terms of penny stocks. Okay. We've all gotten calls from brokers trying to sell us penny stocks. Look, at this stuff is, 4 cents a share, and it's going to go up to 60 cents a share because there's this deal that they're finalizing, and most people don't know about it. So get in on the ground floor now, right? And that's the same thing with different types of cryptos. But like you said, certain cryptos like Ripple, XRP, are being backed somehow by by physical assets, by gold and silver. And it's like the so you've got ETFs out there, exchange traded funds, and their exchange traded funds allow somebody to go out and buy a bunch of gold or a bunch of silver. So like SLV is an ETF that holds silver. You can go in and buy on paper, um, a quantity of silver if you want to. GLD is another exchange traded fund for gold. And what these companies that offer these products have to do is they have to certify with the Securities Exchange Commission that they have enough physical gold or silver sitting in a vault somewhere to cover how much of the paper they sell against that quantity of gold or silver. And so you'll get to that point, I think, eventually with the cryptos, because everything's going back to gold and silver. I mean, you're just it has to, because you can't. We're sitting here right now with $31 trillion in debt. We've got more debt than the gross domestic product of the entire country. And that's just the stuff that they're showing on the books. There's a whole lot more in unfunded liabilities that are out there as well, that are kind of off the books or in a different set of books. And so countries are realizing that. And you see that, I mean, Saudi Arabia is trying to join the BRICS community, and Saudi Arabia is trading with the Chinese in yuan. The Chinese are no longer required to go out and buy a bunch of US dollars and put them in the bank so that they can pay Saudi Arabia for oil and gas. And there's a lot of countries that have already done that. And eventually you're going to reach a tipping point where all those dollars that have gone out into the world as reserve currency dollars for different nations, that stuff's all going to come back in here. So you think you got inflation now, just imagine what the inflation picture is going to look like when all those dollars flood back here onto US shores. I mean, it's Weimar Germany, right? You got a wheelbarrow full of Deutsche Marks to go down and get a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk.
So
um
basically that will cause the dollar to be greatly devalued then.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it'll become
Okay,
worthless.
okay. Okay, that makes sense. Well, wait, I want to back up a little bit. Why would somebody want to buy gold on paper? Why would they just want to have the actual gold? It would be just a safety issue, or would there be another reason?
There's a lot of different reasons. You know what? You could be speculation. You believe that for a period of time, things are going to get very turbulent. In 2008, 2010, for example, the housing market, and Lehman Brothers collapsed, and the banks had to be bailed out. All right, at that point, the price of gold and silver went up very quickly. And so instead of going down and buying a bunch of gold and silver and then taking it home and putting it in a safe or a safe deposit box or whatever, you could go out and you could access those exchange traded funds, knowing that you could always redeem them for the physical if that's what you chose to do, but they're sitting in a vault somewhere secure, and you can take advantage of the price changes, and buy at a certain point and then sell at a certain point when you think
Like
that
a
the
stock, almost
it's
like a stock.
exactly like it's like a mutual fund. It's just, it's very, very focused on those particular assets.
Gotcha. So, wow. So as the dollar gets loses value, then gold and silver are going to keep going up and up and up. I mean, it's like it's kind of like I'm looking at the scales, like the legal scales that they always use for logos. That as the dollar goes down in value, gold and silver goes up. Kind of like,
Oh yeah.
it,
Well, you know what? Here's the deal. Okay, if you look at it in terms of actual purchasing power, um, uh, the price of gold and silver never really, well, silver's a little bit different than gold because it's got so many industrial uses, but gold particularly, the value of gold has not diminished. The price may fluctuate, but but that's tied to inflation and other things. But if you took a 1 ounce American Eagle gold coin, all right, in today it's, I don't know, I haven't looked at the price of gold. Maybe it's $1,825 for an ounce. If you took that, you could get yourself a um, a tailored suit, right? You could go into a really good tailor and get yourself a suit and some shirts and ties and all of that. And that's the same as it was, 100 years ago, 150
it's all
years ago.
kind of almost, it's like the step that came after bartering in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Which I think, and I mean, I was involved in a number of different bartering things, and some of them work better than others. Um, but the concept of it, is pretty cool. It just, if I don't think they work right now. I mean, from my experience, I think there are a lot of pitfalls. But again, where anytime you're exchanging something, it's bartering, whether it's exchanging a check or whatever. It's just what what's kind of behind it. It's not really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see the way it plays out. And unfortunately, that really is like, that's tapped the absolute top of my knowledge on these things. There are other people that know a whole lot more in terms of how these things work, and the ins and outs of how to how to deal with them, right? In terms of transactions. I mean, there's people that are out there that are using cryptocurrencies for going out and buying groceries, and buying all kinds of other things. So they're reaching a level of acceptability in the mainstream that people are taking advantage of. I've never. It'd take a bit for me to figure out how to do it. I mean, it's hard enough for me to just figure out how to go from, you know, a dollar to, a dollar's worth of Bitcoin. And, maybe I want to go and get 50 cents of that Bitcoin to, get 50 cents worth of XRP, doing all that stuff and the transactions involved, and in, the, the exchange fees and all that stuff. To me, it's still kind of an amorphous, foggy place. So I don't go there a lot.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because now I know I'm not alone. But I'll say, if the people, anyone listening wants to go dive deep No, let me know, let Salty know, and we'll see if we can't find somebody who's, really entrenched in this. Personally, I'm kind of like, let's wait. Like, I'm just kind of waiting and seeing what's going to happen. I'm not rushing out to buy a bunch of stuff that I want to totally understand it before I, you know, buy something that I don't understand. I mean,
E-
I
Exactly.
understand now that, yeah, if I'm going to buy crypto, it's going to be something that's backed by some kind of physical asset. I'm not going to go buy, just anything. But, trying to, boy, like you said, it's the wild, wild west. I mean, and I know years ago, when Bitcoin was first coming out, there was another company. I can't even remember what they were, but I went to a meeting and they said, "Hey, this is the next best thing, and you need to buy something. You're going to be rich." And so yeah, all right, here's $100. Like
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and of course they went out of business along with my $100. There was no way to recoup it, but I'm glad it wasn't $10,000. Which I'm sure a lot
Exactly.
of people, I know a lot of people probably put that kind of money into some of these cryptos, except, I mean, Bitcoin still seems to be doing extremely well, but if I'd known to buy Bitcoin back then, maybe I would have, but I didn't.
Well, but Bitcoin's kind of it's an outlier because of the way it was set up and because of the way that I mean, you physically through computers mine, you know, little pieces of Bitcoin from all over the place. That's a whole that's a complex, system and setup that I've never undertaken, but I understand, how it exists as opposed to just coming out there and saying, "Hey, I'm coming out with this new coin and trust me," because I know some people that, that lost a lot of money because they, it's like these high yield investment programs where, somebody says, look, if you give me $1,000 or $10,000 of crypto, I'll double your money, you know, in 2 weeks. And a bunch of people put their money into it, and then you never hear from the people again, you know, and that,
Yeah, like I've got
you know,
swampland. I've got some land and,
yeah, exactly, exactly.
I know
Hey,
it's overwhelming. You got to
I,
go. But
yeah, I hate to cut you off, but I do have to run to an appointment. But I always love talking to you. This is good stuff.
thank you, and I hope everybody enjoys it. And hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again. And take
Absolutely.
care. Have a
You
great
too.
rest of your day. All
You
righty.
too. Thanks,
Mm,
Rhonda.
Thank you. Bye bye.